So you're thinking about getting either the Vivo X200 Ultra or the Vivo X300 Pro, but you're not sure which has the better camera. Well, this is your video. Let's showcase the difference between both of them when it comes to the camera performance. And in my end thoughts, I will also discuss a little bit about the performance and just overall use as well. Either way, let's dive into the video. A comparison like this is never simple, especially when both contenders come from the same brand. But in this case, there are two major differences that truly set them apart. Let's start first with perhaps the most striking difference here, and that's the ultra-wide camera. The Vivo X200 Ultra offers a more slightly wider perspective of 14mm compared to the 15mm equivalent on the X300 Pro, but the real difference lies here in the sensor size. The X200 Ultra offers a massive 1/1.28 inch sensor size for its ultra-wide compared to the X300 Pro that houses a considerably smaller 1/2.76 inch sensor size. Now, because of the difference in the focal length, the X200 Ultra naturally captures a wider scene, while the X300 Pro image is slightly more cropped. In daylight photography, you'll notice only subtle distinctions between the two, minor color shifts and slightly tonal differences here and there. Zoom in and yes, you might spot a bit more detail here and there on the Ultra, but that is getting into the pixel peeping territory that I don't often really cover. However, the bigger difference comes when the light goes down. The gap between the two widens dramatically. In low light, the X300 performs decently, but when you match it up with something like the X200 Ultra, the Ultra just outshines it. The Ultra larger sensor handles light sources with more control, produces less noise, and preserves more fine detail. It's a clear and undeniable win here for the X200 Ultra in these challenging lighting conditions. Now onto the main sensor, the second major difference. Here both phones offer the same 1/1.28 inch sensor size. The aperture difference is slightly there with an f-stop of 1.7 on the Ultra versus a 1.6 on the Pro. But the real distinction comes down to the focal length. The X200 Ultra offers an equivalent 35mm lens. A focal length beloved for its natural perspective and pleasing compressions. The X300 Pro, on the other hand, uses a 24mm equivalent focal length, giving a more noticeable wider shot. That means that the Ultra images appear more cropped, but also have more sense of depth, with distant objects seeming closer. Color addition between the two remains quite similar, though the X200 Ultra often delivers a bit more contrast to the shot, even with those identical settings. Personally, I find adding the contrast gives a bit more character to the shot. Still, there are moments where I actually prefer the Vivo X300 Pro. Ultimately though, when it comes to a phone comparison like this, it comes down to preference. I know I say this a lot, but it really matters here. If you value the more natural compression and a tighter frame of 35mm equivalent, the X200 Ultra will likely win you over here. But if you prefer a more brighter look of a 24mm equivalent, the X300 Pro might fit you better if you use that main sensor a lot. Naturally, when it comes down to the ultra-wide, it isn't even close. We now move to probably one of my favorite sensors, the Periscope telephoto. On paper, both of these devices seem nearly identical. Each feature an 85mm equivalent focal length and both share a 1/1.4 inch sensor size. But as always, the real story lies in the small details. The X200 Ultra carries an f-stop of 2.3, while on the X300 Pro it's a slightly narrower f-stop of 2.7. That means that the Ultra allows a bit more light to reach the sensor, producing also a shallower depth of field. On the other hand, the narrower aperture on the X300 Pro can sometimes result in slightly sharper overall images. It's also worth noting that the X300 introduces the new HPP sensor, while the X200 Ultra still uses the HP9. Specs aside though, the real question is, how do they perform in practice? When it comes to result, there are some slight differences again in terms of color and the way that they approach the photography. You will notice that sometimes the dynamic range is a little bit better on the X300 Pro, but apart from that, there isn't a huge difference between both of them. They are pretty similar when it comes down to the result itself and in terms of quality as well. It's just here and there you will notice a difference between both of them. Now with the X200 Ultra we got this new camera kit, and with that camera kit we got this lens attachment, and it works the same way as it does on the X300 Pro. You can easily connect it, however there is a difference when it comes to the camera kit. The thread is now 62mm versus 67mm when it comes to filter attachment. However, when it comes to the lens attachment, there will be a difference in the future, where the X300 Pro will auto-enable the mode when you attach lens because of the NFC chip. But quality-wise, it's pretty much the same. But there is a bigger benefit for the X300 Pro currently, and that is that you can use this in any mode apart from macro. There are some limitations with zoom in with, for instance, portrait being set at that 200mm and not being able to go further. But in terms of modes, you can use it in any of them, and that is a huge benefit. Let's discuss macro photography. The bokeh on neither the X200 Ultra nor the X300 Pro produces that perfectly round, creamy bokeh balls that many photographers love, and that's because of how the Periscope is built. Yet, Vivo's approach to macro photography is still impressive. Both phones offer a close minimum focus distance, and when you lock on the subject itself, the camera subtly compensates for the small hand movements that you will have, making it easier to keep your focus right where you want it. And having that manual focus next to it really adds that layer of precision when it comes down to it. When it comes however to the result, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. In some cases, the X200 Ultra delivers a more noticeable, sharper image with cleaner color separation as well. But the X300 Pro often counters with more natural greens, less saturation and more true to life and stronger contrast in the red. In those scenarios, the X300 Pro pulls ahead, which is surprising, seeing how the X200 Ultra already improved quite a lot when it comes to that color separation compared to the X100 Ultra. Still, both have moments where image processing can feel a touch heavy-handed, a bit more than I personally prefer. But overall, when it comes to reliability of the macro photography, both of them are excellent. It's just a bit of a difference between the colors, but also of course, when it comes down to macro photography, I do like myself a little bit more of that rounded bokeh compared to what you would get on a Periscope. Right, Vivo X200 Ultra versus the X200 Pro. Naturally, this is the ultra wide sensor. Now, the main sensor for both is different. It's 35mm equivalent and a 24mm equivalent. So you cannot really have the same. You need to crop in with either of them to get the same focal length. Let's go to 85. On the phone itself, I will actually say that the color calibration looks better on the X300 Pro. Like there's a yellow hue on the Ultra. Back to the ultra wide, which is quite noticeable compared to what reality is. .4K 60 frames per second, starting with the main sensor on both. Of course, 35 versus 24mm equivalent. One thing that you will notice, while the X200 Ultra has more warmth to it, the X300 Pro is closer to what it actually is. Yes, it's a bit wider than reality, but still. Going to the ultra wide. And you can notice a clear shift in the hue with a lot warmer tones on the X200 Ultra compared to the Pro. Let's zoom in a little bit. Same framing. Right. This one has 250 and this is 230 by default, but we're gonna crop in a little bit to get it the same. It's 252, but it's pretty much the same. I do like the more contrasty look on the X200 Ultra here though, where the X300 Pro is definitely more bright. Back to the ultra wide, the main sensor. Alright, 4K 60 frames per second on both with the front facing camera. Now something that I did notice in some videos is that the X300 Pro sometimes has a little bit of a audio issue when it comes to recording. It's not often, but sometimes you will notice like a dip in the audio compared to X200 Ultra. It doesn't have that. I don't know if it's going to happen now, but it could be that partially the microphone is blocked because of how I'm holding it. But yeah, I did notice that. In terms of colors, I can't really comment here because I forgot that I have my X200 Ultra set up a little bit warmer. The X300 Pro doesn't have that yet. So at the end, when it comes to a comparison like the Vivo X300 Pro and Vivo X200 Ultra, there are some major differences between the two, and if you love ultra-wide photography, then without a doubt, it's the X200 Ultra that you should get instead of the X300 Pro. While the X300 Pro isn't a slouch, it's definitely not as close as you would like when it comes to that ultra-wide. The X200 Ultra is simply better here, but that's not surprising, especially for the sensor size that you're getting inside the X200 Ultra. That is of course to compensate for the 35mm equivalent, and the 35mm equivalent when it comes to that main sensor is also something that you have to keep in mind. You have a 24mm equivalent versus a 35mm equivalent. Depending on the kind of photography that you do, you might want to go for either of those based on that. That alone already makes a huge difference for some people. So let me know in the comments below which one you would pick. Now, when it comes to the Periscope, however, that's something where I feel like that really doesn't matter that much. The differences between the two isn't that huge. Yeah, sure, you see some differences in exposure sometimes here and there, but it isn't huge by any means. So it doesn't really matter which one you pick when it comes to the Periscope itself. There is, however, an argument to be had when it comes to the conversation of day-to-day use. The X200 Ultra is one of the better ones when it comes to the battery life. It isn't as good as the X200 Pro, but still excellent battery life nonetheless, making it easy to last till the end of the day. When it comes to the X300 Pro, I wouldn't say it's bad by any means. It's fine, it's good, but it isn't more than that. Especially if you shoot out a lot, you will notice that of course we are dealing, when it comes to the global version, with a smaller battery, and that's down to EU rules, which I'm really hating at the moment. Because when it comes to the global version, you get a much smaller battery compared to the Chinese model of it. That being said, when it comes to the X300 Pro, we now finally have Origin OS on it as well. Sure, the Vivo X200 Ultra also has it, but this is the global version of it running an Origin OS, meaning you have eSIM where the X200 Ultra doesn't have that, for instance. And I will say, when it comes to Origin OS, it's really smooth when it comes to the day-to-day experience. Overall, the animations are done really well, and just the general use of the phone is really good. I will however say that I miss that subtle curve on the glass itself that the X200 Ultra has compared to the really flat display that we have on the X300 Pro. But overall, when it comes to a comparison like this, for myself, and that's my own use, I would pick the X200 Ultra. This simply because of the 35mm equivalent and of course the much better ultra wide as well, and better battery life. But when it comes to better battery life and you can get the Chinese version and you don't mind of course maybe some limitations that you will have with it, I would definitely go for that one, because it will come with a much better battery life. Either way, let me know what you think about the Vivo X200 Ultra versus the X300 Pro. Now of course I made this video a little bit shorter, so I would have it out a little bit earlier, so you can check it out earlier if you are really hyped about either of these, so you would know at least which one to get out of these two. Now before we leave, I really want to thank my members. Thank you so much for the support. It really means a lot to me, so thank you so much for the support you guys have been giving me. Of course, I will be uploading some WAV files between both of them for personal use, so you can check them out and see which one you prefer when it comes to the WAV files. Now, before we leave also, don't forget to like, subscribe, everything. It really helps out a channel like mine, and of course, maybe we reach 30k before the end of the year. The last two videos have been doing really well, so thank you so much for the support. Either way, have a good one, and talk to you guys in the next. Oh, and stay tuned, more comparison coming, and of course the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max as well. Have a good one.